when your child just won't share. Stay tuned. So sometimes whenever we get together and there is a play date, your child just won't want to share. And as a parent, that can be embarrassing. But before we do anything and before we force sharing, ask yourself these 6 questions. So the number 1 question is this developmentally appropriate? If your child is between the ages of 2 and 4, the answer is no, it's not. It's really unusual for a child between the ages of 2 and 4 to have developmentally reached the stage yet where they will willingly share or where they actually want to share, where sharing feels good to them, where they decide, oh, that person wants something that I have, I want to give it to them, instead of feeling, oh, but I want it too, because it's really great, you know. So a lot of children between the ages of 2 and 4 will not be there yet, and because it's not developmentally appropriate, I think maybe once you reach this is the very first question, but if you've discovered, okay, it's not developmentally appropriate to be asking my child to share, now's the time to let it go. Okay, if it's developmentally appropriate and it's still not happening, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is it realistic? Is it a realistic expectation to have of our child? So the thing is, ownership of toys is one of the very few areas in your child's life where they have control. So maybe they don't want to share this toy because it's special to them and they want to feel some level of autonomy. They want to feel, well, I can say no if I don't want to share this with somebody. And think about the bigger picture here. Do you really want to force sharing whenever this is one of the few areas in their life they are able to take control over their own things? Number 3, consider what it is you're trying to teach your child. Are you trying to teach them to be generous and kind? Are you trying to teach them that sharing with another feels good? Well, if the answer to those questions was yes, consider this. If they don't actually want to share right now and you force them, are they going to feel those things you're hoping they'll feel? Do you think that they'll feel good about giving that toy to the other child? Because they won't. The thing is, they're going to begrudge it and they're going to be giving to that child with a sense of resentment, and it's not going to feel good for them or for the other child. Number 4, consider what is the real motive here. Consider why. Imagine this situation where the 2 children are both pulling on the one toy and they both want that toy. A lot of the time there is an exploration and a learning and a social understanding forming in your child's brain through that activity. Okay, so that fight or argument over the toy is actually teaching your child so much, and if you step in right there and force that your child lets go of it and gives it to the other child, what are we teaching them? It's just not a good idea. You don't want to teach your child that other person is more deserving of it just because, okay? It's good for your child to battle this out in one way. Of course, if it becomes a safety issue when there's some sort of violence, step in, because so much is going to be learned just through the natural consequence. If you jump in there and force sharing, your child is going to feel a certain level of resentment and a bit of self-pity. But if the other child naturally wins the toy, if through this tugging game, the other child is the one who goes away with the toy in their hand, while your child might feel a bit sad about it, they have learned something about fairness. Number 5 is consider why you are feeling socially awkward right now. Consider, why are you embarrassed that your child doesn't know how to share? Consider your own feelings, try and manage your own social expectations. Think about, well, what ways could you make this easier and less awkward? I suppose you could explain that you don't want to force sharing. You could explain that you understand these things, that there's a certain level of learning going on, that your child maybe is not developmentally ready, that maybe it's an unrealistic expectation. You can explain that to the other parents if you want to, or you can just say nothing, because most likely they understand anyway. And number 6, this is probably the most important point to consider, is, are we modeling sharing? So if we're not already modeling sharing, It's understandable that our children won't really know how to do it. So whenever your friend comes over, do you just hand over your computer? Do you let them scroll through your phone? You share because they come in and you make them a cup of coffee or you give them some biscuits. But these are all things that you've chosen to share. These are all things that you want to share with them. You're not giving them the other things out of your cupboard. You're not, sharing your lipstick. You're not sharing your clothes with them. You're not sharing anything, your jewelry. You're not sharing anything that is precious to you necessarily, or maybe you are. And if you're modeling it, then great. But the majority of people are not. The majority of people will sit down with a friend and have a cup of tea, sure, but we're not really going to be handing over everything we own just because the other person says, oh, that's nice, oh, you can have it. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So always I will ask my children before a play date if there's any toys that they don't really feel like sharing. And if they don't really feel like sharing those toys are just put away. And then there's no issue whenever the friend comes. Because it's also not fair on the other friend that they come, they're like, oh, that toy looks really great, I want to play with that, and your child isn't willing to share it. So you can just put it up on a high shelf or put it away in a room that the children won't be in. And then your child feels good because they have that level of control. They are able to decide what they're going to share and what they're not going to share. And they're more likely to be able to share the few things that they have decided they're going to share. You can ask them, what would you like to play with your friends? And you can actually display the things that are going to be played with, and you can direct the play too. Whenever the friends come, say, oh, oh, look, Lily has decided she wants to share these jigsaws with you. And the jigsaws are laid out, and so the children will all sit down and play the jigsaws, and it's already been pre-decided that these will be shared, and it's just easier. And through practicing that over the years, children will learn the joy of sharing with other people, and they will enjoy the experience of sharing because it won't feel like an intrusion. It won't feel like they're being made to give over things that were precious to them or that they wanted to have some sort of ownership over. So I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please click like, consider subscribing, and if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below.